Mark Rogers TV on college football, and it was just about this time last week we were all geared up to watch some big-time college football. The SEC Network underway, the big launch with Texas A&M and South Carolina, the Gamecocks and the Aggies got a couple of top 25 teams, and we bring in Connor Tapp because things went awry after the big run onto the field, and everybody geared up for the Gamecocks to continue a long home winning streak. And Connor, wow, you just had to sit there with the rest of us, but the rest of us, many of us, didn't have much stake in the game, but to be a bit in shock watching what transpired, not necessarily losing, but you were a 10-point favorite, but in losing in that fashion.
Right, yeah, and South Carolina has had bad losses very recently. The Tennessee game last year, a bad loss. The 2011 Auburn game is a very bad loss. But to have it happen this early in the season and to just sort of immediately dash all of your hopes right out of the gate, and as you said, to have it happen in blowout fashion, it's a relatively, well, historically not a new experience for South Carolina fans, but over the past 4 seasons or so, we've come to expect a certain level of competitiveness that wasn't to be seen on Thursday night.
But for people that have checked out our video posts, you've been able to kind of forewarn us. You've proved prophetic to a certain extent, Connor, because you've told us the entire offseason, hey, at one point we only had one scholarship cornerback. The secondary is extremely young. We lost a ton there. We lost both starting cornerbacks, and you've definitely forewarned us. I don't know if you expected 511 yards passing to a college quarterback making his first career start, but at the same time, you were wary about the defensive secondary, and it proved to be true.
Right, yeah, and I think over the course of the summer, a lot of South Carolina fans sort of talked themselves into the idea that the defense would be okay. And, looking back on it, those were just clearly mistaken attempts to rationalize impending doom, basically. I mean, we had Al Harris Jr. starting, has great NFL bloodlines, but is a 162-pound cornerback starting as a true freshman. That's not good. And when you're not able to get off wide receiver blocks like at all because you're just a tiny 18-year-old, that's going to create some problems for your defense. So he is actually being replaced this week in favor of Rico McWilliams, the aforementioned only returning cornerback with a start. Bryson Williams, who previously you and I discussed, he's experienced returning safety. He did end up moving to cornerback. He is going to be dealing with a little bit of a forearm issue heading into ECU, so some changes in the works. A lot of stuff still up in the air in the secondary. But yeah, it was not good. And I think over the course of the season, there's hope for some improvement. Cornerback, in particular, is a position that's a good deal easier for talented, long, young athletes to step into and make an impact right away. Maybe not quite game one right away, but I think over the course of the season, you might see some development from guys like Wesley Green and Chris Lamons, some four-star cornerback signees from this previous class, who didn't start against Texas A&M, but did play a little bit. Lamons did anyway. Green did not. Was initially volunteered to redshirt, which that word about that kind of got out this week and has sort of had a lot of South Carolina fans scratching their heads with some of the cornerback issues. Why are we having 4-star cornerback signees volunteer to redshirt? But so hopefully over the course of the season, we'll be able to work out some of those kinks at cornerback. As far as this week in particular, again, another change that is being made is at strong safety. Chaz Elder, who started at that position last week, will be giving way to T.J. Gurley, a junior in the program. And very few South Carolina Gamecocks made good plays on defense. T.J. Gurley, number 20, was flying around the field, breaking up passes, bless his heart, as we say in South Carolina, because it was to little avail. He was getting not very much help at all from his teammates. So that's a change that I think Gamecock fans are pretty excited about. But it's going up against an East Carolina offense that doesn't have Malcolm Kennedy, doesn't have Ricky Seals-Jones, doesn't have Speedy Noyle, but they do have some good players on that team. Justin Hardy, a very good wide receiver, had 1,200 yards last year. Carden, the quarterback for East Carolina, I think his 39-10 touchdown interception ratio last year. So it's going to be a tough test and a sign to me of how well this Gamecock team is able to improve from one week to another.
And Connor, based on what you just outlined, all that shuffling and changes in the secondary, there's definitely not a wait-and-see approach by the South Carolina coaching staff. It's, okay, this is severe. We need to act on it right now. We need to get some players in the lineup that are going to put forth maybe a better effort. The maturation process that you outlined for Mr. Harris, something that we need to take into consideration as well. So obviously not a wait-and-see method here. They want to make changes. They want to make it right now. They realize the passing attack that they're facing this week. I found it very interesting, some of the comments that the old ball coach made, Steve Spurrier, at his weekly press conference, talking about the effort level. So he didn't come out plainly and say, hey, we didn't try, there was lack of effort out there, guys hung their heads, and we didn't have the hustle out there and the desire that we need. He came close to stating that. There were some comments made about, hey, well, we've won so much here in the past 3 years that some guys are used to winning. We've won games at times when we didn't play our best, so guys think that, hey, they don't need to go the extra mile. They don't need to complete a play, that they've been able to get by with less than 100% and still been able to win games, and we got torched this time out. So how do you interpret this in the comments by Mr. Spurrier?
I mean, I don't know that I necessarily saw like a lack of effort necessarily, as much as just a lack of preparedness and not really knowing your assignments and what needs to be done. And as much as he was kind of harsh on the performance of his players, he's also pretty harsh on himself and the rest of his coaching staff. I think he understands that not only was this not a great effort from the players, but that the coaches really didn't put these guys in a position to win. And he seems to understand that and is generally pretty harsh on himself, too, after a loss like this. But I mean, it is a good point. This team did win a lot of games in 2013 that it probably didn't have a lot of business winning. There were some very dicey moments against just clearly inferior teams like Florida, Kentucky, arguably Central Florida. They turned out to be a BCS Bowl winning team, but at the time it seemed like a dicey situation down in Orlando. But so yeah, I mean, there is a lot of leadership that's gone from this team. The guys who went through the battles, the Victor Hamptons, the Jadeveon Clowneys, the Kelsey Quarles, the Chaz Suttons of the world, they're all gone, and not only from just an experience and knowing what kind of attitude and intensity level to bring to a game, but just like knowing your assignments. And the move of Bryson Williams from safety to cornerback, I think, is significant in that there is not that experienced veteran in the back of the defense, making sure everyone is lined up properly. And I think that really showed, maybe more than anything else, because there were so many missed tackles, so many botched assignments, and players just not playing with the correct leverage. And it was bad. I mean, Texas A&M has some good athletes and very good athletes and executed very well, but it just seemed like South Carolina did not know what it was doing on defense. So from a preparedness and to that extent an effort level, I think, yeah, he's justified in being critical of not only himself but the players from what was seen on Thursday.
Hey, Connor, Mike Davis has been banged up for a long time now. It's been generally the ribs, but it's been a lot of things for him mounting. And can you update us on what you believe his status to be at this point?
Mike Davis started the week doubtful against East Carolina, according to Steve Spurrier. Now seems there's no official designation like in the NFL, but I would say probable at this point. I don't think you're going to necessarily see a lot of him. Steve Spurrier, even in saying that Mike Davis should be able to go, he's also said that you're going to see a good deal of some guys like redshirt freshman David Williams, who Gamecock fans are really excited about. This is like the next practice legend that everyone is hoping to see do it on the game field. One of the fastest players on the team. He and Demir Bird, I think, both run somewhere around a 4.340. So he's a nice change of pace from what you see from Mike Davis or even Brandon Wilds. But I think you're going to see 4 running backs probably touching the ball, regardless of what the lead looks like for South Carolina at any point on Saturday. I expect Davis, Wilds, Sean Carson, and Dave Williams to all get involved. But yeah, the rib injury has been a lingering thing for Davis. Some kind of want to put an injury-prone label at him on this juncture. But, I mean, because Mike Davis did wear down over the course of the 2013 season. But if you saw some of the hits that he took, there were multiple occasions where you're coming away from watching that very concerned about whether or not he is done for the year. And he just got right back off the mat. And so, I mean, maybe he's injury prone, maybe he isn't. But this rib injury, and that's something that people kind of, I guess, scoff a little bit at. It doesn't maybe sound like the worst injury in the world, but South Carolina fans have a lot of experience with rib injuries because Jadeveon Clowney, if you remember, this was a bruised rib was the same thing keeping Clowney out, and people sort of hinted that he was malingering and didn't care that much about the team. And there's been, message board whisperings about that, but I don't think there's really any reason to question Davis's toughness or commitment to the team at this point.
Now, the offense put up 24 points. There's a number of ways to interpret that. 24 points on the standard SEC defense is nothing to be ashamed of. But Texas A&M, of course, was probably the worst defense in the conference and one of the worst big-time defenses in college football last season. They've recruited to the point where they should be better, but nobody expected them to be that good this year. Plus, you were playing catch-up, so 24 points could be a bit inflated. Dylan Thompson hit on 20 of 40. He hit on some big pass plays down the field, but very inconsistent. The offensive line protection was definitely termed by Steve Spurrier to be not what it needs to be. And can you kind of outline, as you see it, in regards to Dylan Thompson's share of the blame versus the offensive line and maybe some changes that are being made there?
I think the offensive line play was not good in run blocking or pass protection. Thompson was sacked 3 times, and his sack rate, he got sacked on 6% of his pass attempts, which is double what the Gamecocks were able to do last year when Thompson was in the game. But 6% is still not terrible, but there were plenty of other plays where he just kind of had to throw the ball away quickly to avoid a sack, thus increasing his very pedestrian completion percentage of 50%. But there are some throws in the game, and because I hate myself, I have watched this game 3 times. When Dylan Thompson, you just are looking at, and you're just not sure what the thought process was. It's it's either a severe inaccuracy issue or a severe poor decision-making issue, particularly early in the game when some of the throws were just really sailing on him. And I mean, that's difficult to recover from. South Carolina was able to hit a couple of big plays, had that 69-yard touchdown pass to Nicky Jones to get the Gamecocks back in it early, and another long one to Demir Bird. And this is what we knew Dylan Thompson was. He's not Connor Shaw. He's not the move the chains, hyper-efficient quarterback. He's the antithesis of Connor Shaw in so many ways. But to see it in this extreme where it's either, the bomb touchdown or 3 and out, it was just, it was, you can't sustain an offense like that against a team like Texas A&M, who is going to be a legit threat to score every single time they have a possession. And that was where South Carolina really struggled. Anytime they were able to stay on schedule, stay ahead of the chains, they were in pretty good shape. But too often, there's no gain on first down, incomplete pass on first down, and South Carolina just really got behind the chains and had a lot of problems, and that was due to both some inaccuracies from the quarterback position and also not great performance in the running game. And we are seeing some changes on the offensive line. Right guard Cody Waldrop, who actually started the year as a center but moved over to right guard when Mike Matulis was lost for at least half the year, maybe the season. We're still trying to sort through that right now, but he was moved to right guard for the season opener. Now he's going to be replaced by Will Sport for this game, and at center you're either going to see Alan Knott or Clayton Statnick again. So some change to the interior of the offensive line. I think still feel pretty good about what they have at the tackles and the left guard position, where they have an All-American and A.J. Cann. But hopefully some of these minor tweaks to the offense will result in a much better outing against East Carolina.
Yeah, and we highlight the secondary because of the 500 yards and the 52 points, but this was supposed to be one of the best offensive lines in the SEC and just did not perform like it in Game 1. And Connor, you're safe with us. We determined that the 3 viewings of the game, that's pure dedication. That is nothing but pure dedication, okay. Nothing else.
Good. So, I was worried it was mental illness.
I'm going to say pure dedication.
Okay.
This is not college basketball. So if you start 3-5, it's not like, okay, well, that's not good, but we can recover. We're starting the conference season. Everything's fine. This is, wow, right out of the gate, we get blasted. We're a 10-point favorite. We get blasted at home. And then we're facing a really scrappy team that's going to be a threat. And then we've got Georgia. Are people already projecting in the South Carolina camp, wow, we could be 0-3 before we turn around and the season's going to be completely trashed?
Projecting, I would maybe be strong. Worried about, definitely. I mean, East Carolina is a very good team. They won 10 games last year, and they have a very good idea about what they're doing on offense, and that is big trouble for South Carolina. So, yeah, I mean, if you lose to East Carolina, the South Carolina-Georgia game is always up in the air, but obviously after what Georgia did to Clemson last week, you got to be leaning Georgia at this point in that one. But, yeah, I mean, this is an absolute must-win, which seems slightly crazy to say. But South Carolina really needs to beat this East Carolina team because 0-3, that's beyond, I think, what the worst-case scenario that any South Carolina fan was realistically considering coming into the beginning of the season. You do have a decent chance to recover from that and get back to 500 with games against Vanderbilt, Missouri, Kentucky, Furman, before you then get into a pretty difficult stretch where you've got Auburn, Tennessee, Florida, and Clemson. But it's beating East Carolina is an absolute must. If that doesn't happen, I'm not saying I agree with it, but you're going to see a lot of people on the internet starting to call for things like Steve Spurrier's job.
All right, Connor Tapp of SB Nation's Garnet and Black Attack. It's the South Carolina platform for South Carolina sports. So, Connor, we appreciate the time, and would just like before we let you go, what do you have out there for us to read?
Out there for you to read?
Yeah, in regards to Garnet Black Attack, what's on the platform right now? What's on the website?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So up on the site right now, we have our weekly digital simulation called Our Digital Season. It does not predict a good outcome for South Carolina, but it's a very fun read. We also have a rundown of the craziness that went down on the steps of the State House at South Carolina. We had someone on the scene there for the Aggie Yell. I don't know if you saw anything about that, but
no.
South Carolinians didn't take too kindly to these folks from College Station coming in to have their midnight yell on the steps of the Capitol. So we had someone on the ground for that. We've got a report up on the site about that, and just a breakdown of everything that's going on, all the roster news, and everything that's happening with the Gamecocks.
All right, Connor, we can always count on you. Appreciate the time, man.
Yeah, absolutely.